Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's design webinar, continuing our theme of surfaces and texture for the month of March. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Gabriela Silva, Showroom Supervisor with UMI Stone, as she presents Rock Solid Sustainability, the Art of Natural Stone Restoration. Gabriela, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today called Rock Solid Sustainability, the Art of Natural Stone Restoration. My name is Gabriela Silva, and I am the showroom supervisor at UMI Stone in Jacksonville, Florida. I am also the owner of River City Stone Care, a company that specializes in marble restoration in the same area. I came from a very different background. I started in advertising in Brazil about 10 years ago, and I decided to make a big change in my life. I moved to another country. So I ended up at a quartz distribution center, and that's where I fell in love with natural stone and the world of countertops. I then joined UMI in 2022 as a sales consultant and started working really closely with designers and other industry peers, all things kitchen and bath related. And that's how I got to know NKBA. So I joined NKBA and I am now the communications chair for my local chapter in North Florida. And like I mentioned before, I also am the proud owner of River City Stone Care. And that's what brings me here today. I want to talk to you guys today about the key benefits of stone restoration and the types of stone damages that exist and how we can educate our clients about the advantages of restoration over replacement. I want to help you guys also set your business apart when you revitalize your projects without huge costs or without causing a big environmental footprint. This can also lower the environmental footprint of replacing materials, and those practices and conversations will help you set your design business apart. So for this session goals, like I mentioned, identify the key benefits of restoration and the impact that it has in sustainability when we're talking about kitchen and bath design. I also want to go over a couple of different methods to restore, the various types of natural stone surfaces we use, and also help you develop some strategies to educate your clients, talking about the environmental and the financial advantages of stone restoration over replacement. So let's hop into that. And please forgive me if I'm looking to the side a little bit. I have some notes bouncing back off from, so forgive me for that. But diving right into it, preservation of historic and cultural value is one of the main benefits. As you see here, I put some examples on the side of historic buildings, monuments, sculptures, and later on, I'll even discuss a little bit about furniture as well. The fact that we can restore those helps us maintain their integrity and keep their stories alive for future generations. So every stone surface has a unique story to tell, and the restoration ensures that these stories aren't erased and lost to time. I added a couple of case studies, might I say, that I've come across that I wanted to share with you guys. This one, the client was a clock collector, and he wanted these clock bases to be restored, but his request was restore it without making it look new. I wanted still to look old because these are centennial clocks. So what we did was a superficial restoration, small little repairs. We didn't fully resurface the pieces, meaning the big, deeper scratches are still there, but the superficial ones are gone. So here you have a little before and after of a couple pieces. You can see how much it changed. And the big benefit of it is that we keep the same history that the pieces already have. We don't change it. This is a case for many small pieces like these, but you can also do it to furniture, floors, bathrooms, countertops, you name it. Here's another example, a different customer, an architectural firm. This was a conference table made with Jurassic marble, and these normally have gastropods or other fossils in them, making them very, very interesting pieces and definitely one of a kind. So it's really hard to get something like this repaired because they're very specific on the little fossils, on the design. You want to make sure that you're not ruining any of that. But this one happened when they were moving to a different office, and they cracked the corner while moving it. So here, they didn't have as much of a need for making it look old still, but to blend in the repair and to make it unnoticeable. So here I like to point out that if they had not decided to restore it and they decided to replace it instead, this would be a lot of work. So they would have to either buy a new table and find something that was as interesting as this, or they would have to go and find another slab of a marble similar to this, maybe not even in inventory. They would have to hunt down the right marble, find a fabricator who could cut to the size, polish the edges, get everything ready. And that honestly brings me to my next step, the cost effectiveness of the restoration versus the replacement. So this is a very important piece that we discuss, and I want to bring it up so you can discuss it with your customers as well. When we talk about this, we find it very often that restoration is still going to be more cost effective than replacing it. I know that it can get really costly to get something restored, or sometimes you just don't have the right professional in your area, or the level of excellence that you need is just in another state for the professional. But when you think about replacing these things, you will really come to the conclusion that it's easier to have it restored and definitely cheaper. Rather than removing and installing something new, restoration, you can always recondition and enhance your existing materials. So something I come across a lot with designers is people that sometimes want to change out their travertine floors because they look ugly, they say, right? So having all of that ripped out, having a new product in, laying that product down, finish it, right? Grouting or whatever it is that you're doing. That there's so many other steps to it that just add on to the cost. Whereas restoration, you would just have that same existing thing restored. You would keep the same look. You would keep the same color. It would just look a lot nicer. A little refresh. Also important to remember that while you're replacing, there's a risk of always damaging everything around it. So if you have tub surrounds that you need to rip out and replace, you damage the existing tile a lot of times, or sometimes you're going to damage the existing floors or the cabinets, and then your problem snowballs and it becomes a whole remodel. And I know that a lot of you are in the field of just remodeling or new builds and all of that, but this is something to have in mind for projects that come across that sometimes you thought there was nothing you could add to it, but this is another take on it. So just keep in mind that replacing it will almost always be much more of a headache. With restoration, there's no downtime. Nobody stays without a kitchen for too long. Everything stays the same. Even when it comes to the actual physical process of restoring, people think that it's a very dusty process, and it isn't. It's always like a wet process. So what you have to worry about is protecting your existing things. So the cabinets, if you're doing a backsplash, for example, you're going to protect your tops, you're going to protect your cabinets. If it's the floors, having the right protection around, or the glass windows, things like that, just to make sure that you don't damage anything in between. But on a historical perspective, as we just saw, you get to keep the original stone without changing the look or the style, and most importantly, keeping its history. Brought another case here. Very interesting and dear to my heart, this one. This is a private estate in Sea Island, Georgia. They have a huge estate full of like smaller little units or bigger units. They rent it out for events. It's also family owned, so they do their own family events there. And they came to us with this big issue. 3 bathrooms that they had in this property had the same issue. You can see here how badly cracked the tub is, and somebody has attempted to restore it, I'm assuming. And this is what they came with. So in our first initial conversation, they were looking to find out what the material was that was used on this surround so that they could find a matching slab and have it redone. They wanted to replace. So as we're discussing and talking about it, I asked, have you thought about getting it repaired? maybe, we can try that instead, because this is not an easy stone to come across. It's not really truly going to match the tile on the side or the flooring that you have. And you can see that the bathroom, they used all the same materials. So how are you going to try to match the tile? Good luck, right? That's when she responded with this sentence that I put here for you guys. And she said, "This is beyond repair." And I told her, "Are you sure?" I'm not sure it's beyond repair. So let's see what we can do. And after considering all the factors, considering that she could still damage more pieces around it, and that would end up being so much more costly, she opted for restoring. And we restored her tub surrounds, and here's the result. Pretty amazing, right? When I look at these pictures, it's really hard to find where the issue was. It looks like a completely different bathroom. But if you zoom in and you look closely to it, you'll see where they are and you'll find them. But here, what was done was a bunch of different crack repairs, fills. They were carefully painted over so that it would blend in with the movement of the stone. And that's how you can achieve this look without having to rip anything else out, without damaging the historic look of it. There are solutions like this. Sometimes we tend to think that things are beyond repair, and they're really not. So give it a shot. Another huge benefit of stone restoration is how sustainable it is. And think about the natural stone extraction. It requires a lot of energy, a lot of labor, and significant resources, including fuel and water. So let's walk a little bit through the process. So here you can see how it comes from the raw materials. The rocks are mined. They are then sent to their manufacturing plant where they're processed. They're going to be cut into slabs or cut into smaller formats for tiles, for floors. They're going to be polished. They're going to be honed. Some are going to be leathered. So all of that process happens there, and then it goes to distribution. So it then still needs to get packed for transport, shipped across halfway across the world, from the suppliers to the smaller stores or the kitchen and bath studios, and so on and so on and so on until it gets to the end customer's house. So you get usage out of it. And after that, recycling is an option with restoration, but if not, everything from there would end up at a landfill. So by repairing the natural stones, you can repeat the cycle, but only between the usage and the recycling instead of going through the whole process once again. The quarries around the world are taking measures to minimize their environmental impact. They're using renewable energy, they're recycling materials, but there's still a lot that goes into the extraction of the raw materials. So after this whole thing is done, the simplest way to reduce the impact of mining and transportation and just getting new materials over and over again is to just do it once. By restoring it, we can reduce the amount of both construction and demolition waste that would otherwise end up in the landfills. So it's a more sustainable option because we're reusing what's already available, conserving both natural resources and energy. I added this here also. I really wanted to share with you guys. It's a quote by Claude Monet, and it says, "Everything changes, even stone." I like emphasizing that setting the right expectation is key, especially in the stone world, because clients need to be educated in the very early stages of material selection, whether you're doing a new build or it's just a remodel, or if you're just doing a little refresh and looking to restore natural stone. You have to set the right expectations. If your customer wants their stone to look pristine and untouched forever, they might not be natural stone people. I always joke and I say that if you're going to greet people at your door with a coaster and hunt them down the house to make sure that they're using it, natural stone is not for them. There are things that happen to it and inevitably will, and you have to be okay with it. The beauty of marble, for example, is super attached to the way that it wears. So you have to see that as gaining character in your stone instead of losing it. That's part of it. So I want people to understand that the stone will absolutely change over time. Also, explain what natural stone is to your customers. Explain the different types of natural stone, that they can get marble, that they can get granite, that there's travertines, limestones, sandstones, quartzites, so many different options. And introduce them as a renewable thing. People sometimes ask me that if you're going to have a limit on how many times you can resurface a marble. And honestly, you could do that thousands and thousands of times and you wouldn't see it. Nobody would notice that you're losing it. Everybody thinks that you're going to sand it down until there's nothing left. And that's not really how it works. There's so tiny and so little of it gets taken away at a time. And it makes a big, big difference. So always keep that in mind. The durability of each stone, the pros and the cons, which ones are more porous, which ones are least porous, and educate your customers. 100%. That's the best advice I could ever give you, is educate them on this. And I know it works for so many other things in this industry, but for the stone world, this is major. The stone still needs maintenance. It's not something that you can just set it and leave it. It will still need maintenance. Some people choose not to do natural stone because they're not willing to deal with maintenance. And the way I always kind of compensate that is by telling them that they still do maintenance in their cars, in their lawns, in their pools. This would be just another one. If somebody asks me, how are people still doing marble if it's so porous, if it's so delicate? It's because it just looks like it is and nothing else looks like it. So with proper care, with regular cleaning, with the proper sealing techniques also, it can be refinished, it can have its original beauty back, and you still get to keep that beautiful natural stone anywhere you want to put it. So how does restoration work? Just like paintings, art restoration is a meticulous process of cleaning surface dirt, removing old varnish, repairing physical damage like tears or cracks in the canvas, filling in missing paint areas with specially matched pigments, and applying a new protective varnish layer, all while aiming to preserve the original artwork as much as possible. This is the same with stone. So with stone, a lot of the processes are still going to be cleaning the dirt from the surface, removing old varnish or sealers or coatings or wax, repairing physical damage like chips or cracks, and filling in with the right pigments, with the right painted epoxies or resins, and filling in with the right color to match the texture and all of that. So this is the same with stone. The same idea as art restoration is the same with stone, while you preserve the original, of course. So you might come across some hard water stains like this, or sometimes a large crack. Sometimes you might just need a little cleaning. Sometimes the old ways take a toll and your iron rod might pop your granite open. Sometimes you're going to want to say it's beyond repair, but is it really? Some of the common types of damages that we normally encounter with natural stone are from surface wears to structural issues. And when we understand what they are, that helps us determine what kind of restoration approach we can take. So surface stains normally caused by foods, liquids, or chemicals. A very common solution to that is to do a poultice on it and basically suck out stain out of the stone. Normally, these stains will penetrate the stone, and then that's why they won't come out just by cleaning it. So it needs to be something a little more aggressive, like a poultice. As a conversation with your client, you can set the right expectations for maintenance on your stone, and you're going to explain that anything, even the man-made materials that are said to be, you know, indestructible, they're not. And anything that you spill and let it sit for too long will stain. It doesn't matter if it's natural stone or man-made, anything can stain. So you have to be proactive about it and have a normal cleaning routine, that if you spill it, you got to clean it. You don't let it sit overnight. Anything with you can have the best sealer in the world in your stone, and if you leave wine spilled for 12 hours, it's stained. There's nothing that will stop that. Scratches and abrasions, for example, are normally caused by heavy foot traffic or moving furniture, sometimes even friction between things. If you have like facades or wall claddings or anything made of stone like that, and there's something rubbing against it constantly, you'll see that starts to wear off. So a lot of times it's resurfacing or refinishing that can fix. You can bring it back and hone it again to the same honing, or you can do repolish and bring it back to the original polish. That's normally how you can fix scratches and abrasions. But then when you get cracks and chips, that's more because of physical impact. Sometimes I know up north, a little more thermal shock can happen and have it crack like that. Or even, for example, as the picture in the previous slide I showed, where the iron rod in front of the sink that used to be used, and honestly, it's still used today to keep the structure in front of the sink, that can still rust and expand and it pops your granite open or whatever your stone is. So for cracks like that, you are going to have to use a different approach, doing epoxy fills or resin fills. Again, taking into consideration the color that it is, the more solid it is, the more unnoticeable it will be. But if it's a busy stone full of movement and color, your stone care professional will want to really take its time, and you would feel like it's Da Vinci over there or Michelangelo doing it, because they will take a brush with tiny little brushes on it and paint each chip to match the same color of that stone. That's how we do it. So deterioration from environmental factors, you bring in exposure to weather, moisture, pollutants. A lot of these applications are outdoors, a lot of outside patios or outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, or facades, like I mentioned, all of that wears because of weather. So heavy cleaning, sealing it again, applying protective coatings. Those are all solutions that steps that we can take to slow down that process. And another one that's pretty common as well is the efflorescence, that basically is when the soluble salts within the stone react with water. And so you're going to get that white powdery substance around it, which needs to be actually scraped off. So abrasive cleaning on that, and then resurfacing so you can have it all flat again, matching up. Okay. Sometimes all you need is a good scrub. This is a great example of when I was mentioning earlier that people sometimes are like, I want to take my travertines out because I don't like them. They're dirty, they're old, they're dark. And sometimes you just need clean. Sometimes I know it sounds crazy, but it's pretty simple. An abrasive cleaning on this, scrubbing it really hard with heavy machinery will get rid of everything. Even on this before picture, you see that stain over there, and over here you don't see it anymore. So a lot of times it's tricky because to the naked eye and to the untrained eye, you're going to assume that it's just how it is. That's the stone. But trust me, there's still a lot that can be done with it. So a lot of times I tell customers that are looking for stone, I tell them about this. I say, listen, even when you think all is lost, it's not. You can still have it repaired, you can have it refinished, you can have it resurfaced, or in this example, you can have it abrasively cleaned, a good scrub. So it goes a long way. Bringing me to a couple of conversations that we can have with our clients to set your design business apart. So this is going to promote you as a designer that really goes the extra step, that really thinks about the entire cycle of their design, um, even after they're using it already, right? So at first, you should educate your customer on material durability and the lifespan. Compare the materials, highlight which stones are more resilient, which requires less maintenance. What are the pros of marble? What are the cons of marble? What are the pros of doing granite? What are the cons of doing granite? Conversations like that will really help explain the longevity of natural stone and keeping keep the whole design sustainable, because the more they know about natural stone and they know that they can have that repaired or refinished or restored, the more chances are they're actually going to put it in their houses when they're picking their materials, right? And then further down the line, here you are caring about the environment, helping your customer care about the environment, and having something that down the line is going to be more cost effective than having it replaced if it's ever damaged, right? So then you introduce sustainability factors. You're going to talk to them about the environmental footprint of pouring, of transporting new stone, highlight how restoration can help reduce waste, how it can help preserve natural resources. And again, not everybody's going to care about it being green, but your recommendations might make a real big difference here. Then you want to give them a cost benefit breakdown. You're going to show them a comparison of restoration versus replacement, and taken into consideration all of those things I mentioned before about the risk of damaging what's around it, the tile, the floors, the cabinets, the countertops, any of that. So having that conversation and explaining the cost benefit of having it restored will definitely be of help to you. Then you also want to set the expectations for maintenance. Very important. I can't even remember how many people I've had this conversation with, because it's one that I get almost every day. Marble, right? I want to say that maybe 60 to 70% of the designers that I work with, when they walk into our slab yard, into our showroom, they look and they go, "You don't want marble," and walk their customers right past it. And that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I'm passionate about marble. I love marble. I would do marble every single day, anywhere. There's nowhere you can tell me that I can't do marble. I would. So it really breaks my heart when I see that our own are telling people to go away from marble. And I think that it's not that that's the wrong advice, but it's not an advice for you to give every single day to every single customer. I think there's a lot that goes into finding out more about your customer, asking the right questions. What kind of family setting do you have? Do you have a lot of kids? Do you not? Do you host a lot of people? Do you like to party? Do you like to cook? Do you cook a lot? Do you bake? Do you make cookies? Do you know, just conversations that you can have with your customer to identify the needs and be able to recommend a better material for that purpose. So I know people who cook a lot and have marble and have no issues with their marble, and yet they still have it refinished every year. They have honed countertops. We rehone it every year for them. It never has an issue, but that's just how they like it. There are people who have too many kids for marble and they're afraid that the kids are going to spill or hit, crack, things like that. And I completely understand. I don't think we should force anybody to do natural stone, but they need to understand why they're saying yes or why they're saying no. So setting the right expectations for maintenance is preparing them and saying, hey, you're going to have that beautiful marble look, white as can be, with beautiful veining, depth, and all of that. But you're going to have to pick up after you and all your kids. You're going to have to clean up pretty quick. You're going to have to cut your lemons and limes on a cutting board instead of the countertop. So it's just conversations like that definitely put you at a higher standard for clients, because now you're the expert and you're helping your customer get something that they're really going to like instead of regret. That's the worst. A lot of people that are uneducated about natural stone and they end up doing natural stone, they regret it. And that's why. It's not the material's fault. It's the fact that they were not compatible with the lifestyle that the customer had. Lastly, I put here promote restoration as a first option. When an issue happens, your customer reports something, discuss restoration before discussing replacement. Exactly because of the sustainable aspect of it. Look at how much has to happen for you to replace your shower floors. It's such a small area and it just ends up costing so much more in the big picture. and to the planet. So talk to them about restoration. Show them before and after pictures of things. Like the designer I mentioned earlier. This is beyond repair. No, it's not. We can still repair it. It can still look just like it was before. So have those conversations. That is really going to help you set yourself apart from others by having the thought to do this, right, for your customer. Different applications that natural stone can be used in that we shouldn't forget. Fireplaces, tables. Like I showed you another table over there, the conference table. Tables, just tables. Dressers, like other types of furniture. Feature walls, shower walls, tub surrounds, floors, backsplashes, countertops, facades. There is so much that takes natural stone that we don't even think about it. We overlook and we're not thinking about it, and we just decide to change everything and redo everything. And that's not always the case. All of these applications have solutions to them. So if something happens to them, there's definitely ways to fix whatever happened. A quick review I wanted to put here. Implementing this educational strategy that I just mentioned will set your design and business apart because you are now positioning yourself as a knowledgeable, sustainability focused expert, and you're prioritizing long-term value for your clients. So through sustainability leadership, you are going to see that your clients appreciate eco-conscious solutions. If you promote the stone restoration, that aligns with green design trends, making your business stand out as an environmentally responsible one. Cost-saving advocacy, educating customers on the financial benefits. You build trust, you build loyalty, you show that your business priorities involve taking care of your customer's budget without compromising the quality. Enhance customer experience. You're going to offer follow-ups. You're going to recommend your stone company. Have a partner, a local partner. Find a company that does that kind of stuff. You'll be surprised at how much you can do. I've seen designers that would normally go out and buy the furniture for their clients, and when you get there, there's this beautiful piece that has a little chip on the corner, and you're like, this would be perfect, but I'm not getting it because I'm not going to put a damaged piece in my customer's brand new house. Well, there might be a solution. Maybe you're getting a really good deal. Maybe you're getting a discount because of that chip. You're going to spend it again in restoring it. But if that's the right piece, you guys know that there's no length that's too long for when you want to get what you really want, right? So options, just options. You see a little damage there, well, I can fix that and I can have the piece I wanted. Or family heirlooms. We've even had work done in urns and all of that because it's precious to people and they don't want to just replace it. That's what they need, but they want it looking very good. They want it to look new. They want it to look restored. So those are things to keep in mind, right? Also, competitive differentiation. Many designers are focusing only on new installations, but your business is going to stand out if you are promoting preservation as well. You're going to offer a unique value and that everybody else tends to overlook. If you do this, you become a trusted advisor, not just a service provider. So that will lead you to a stronger client retention, referrals, and a reputation as an industry leader in sustainable luxury design. And then I added a few pictures for you guys to check it out because these are beautiful things. This is a marble fireplace, all made in Arabescado marble. And you can see how detailed it is, all handmade. If this gets damaged, what happens? If a whole rows of these comes out, what happens? You can still fix it. There's ways to glue it. There's ways to repair it. We can hone it again. I believe this is a honed one. There's tons of options to do something like this. A vanity in a bathroom that had a big chip, right? Chipped in the corner, another little chip in the surface. And again, these are things that you're going to approach to your customer with in the beginning, in the start process of it, by mentioning that these things can happen to natural stone, but they can also be refinished. This other one, for example, I showed in a previous slide, the picture on the left. And this on the picture of the right is the restored portion of it. So you can get rid of those stains. These are very, very common. 6 out of 10 people have it in their home, happens a lot. So it happens a lot with granite, it happens a lot with marble too, but you get mineral deposits there and they stain it and they stay like this. So you can resurface like this one here, polish it back up. Look at how shiny it is. The reflection of the lights in the bathroom are gorgeous. And this is another one of those marbles that has the fossils. You see here, the gastropods here. Really cool. This one also, the picture on the left I showed previously. This on the right is the repair of it. So here you can see how the seam had to be hand painted over with the fill to match the little follicles of this granite. So that's another thing that can be done. I told you guys this is like art restoration, like restoring paintings. This other one also was resurfaced. It was full of etch marks, fully polished back up. You can see here again how crisp the reflection is on the light. And this one was the one that I used to say it was beyond repair. The picture on the left is just scary. There's big chunks of it missing. And then you look at the picture on the right after it was repaired, filled and glued back together. All the cracks were repaired and painted over. So you can see how it just looks like it never happened. And again, this is something you want to talk to the customer about and explain that it works just like skin. If you cut yourself, the skin is alive and the skin is regenerating and you still get a scar. So what do you think is going to happen in your stone? Some people are like, oh, but I can still see it. there's a repair here and I can still see it. Of course you can. You're always going to be able to see it. It's impossible to make it disappear. But you get it as close as you can to being indetectable, if I can say that, so that it looks like a whole piece again. So this is a wonderful, wonderful example of that. And then quickly, a little summary, a little review of what we talked about. Understand client concerns. Talk to your clients, see what is their main concern. Maybe their main concern is I'm going to damage it with heat. Maybe their main concern is I'm going to get chips all over because we're really rough on our things. Or for example, what if I ever stain it? I have parties all the time. I host people all the time. And I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have that maintenance. And like I mentioned, maybe it's not natural stone then. Maybe they need a man-made. Having that understanding of their concerns really goes a long way. Long-term benefits, explain to them the durability, the cost savings that they can get by restoring, by refinishing, having a repair made. Use before and after photos. Those, like I did right here with you guys, those are amazing because it's really hard to put it into people's minds, the idea of what it is. They just think that you're cleaning it in a way. Normally people assume that restoration is just cleaning, and it's really not. There's so much that goes into it. Taking the top layer off, redoing the polish on it, all of that is just, there's so much work in it. And when you use before and after pictures, it really brings a whole new meaning to it. The financial incentive, remind your customer that restoring is going to be less expensive than replacement. All the little things, and time is money. All the little things add up, and it's very, very costly to get things replaced. So have that conversation while you explain the environmental benefits of restoration. Explain how much really has to happen for the new product, the new material that you're using to replace this coming to the house. All that about quarrying and processing, manufacturing, cutting it, shipping it, getting to the house, install, all of that, plus the waste of demolition and all of that. So there's definitely a whole world waiting on restoration that I believe it's not a market that's been thoroughly expanding, or like not everybody knows about it, not everybody uses it, not everybody goes for it. And I feel like we really should. That's the beauty of natural stone. It's the beauty of having that depth. And the depth means it's natural. It's almost alive. It's not really, but it's almost alive. And it's an interesting piece to have it in your home, no matter where you're using it. If it's in furniture or on the floors, it's beautiful. Nothing is matching that beauty, not even porcelain, no matter how good they attempt. But it's just it's its own thing. It's the nature of the beast is that you will need maintenance. You will eventually have it restored, no matter what it is, but eventually you will. And you can offer the tailored solutions for that project. If it's a tabletop that needs a repair, let's do it. If it's the floors that need an abrasive cleaning, if somebody while cleaning ruined your marble, cleaned it with vinegar and etched everything, there are ways to do it. Don't assume that because it's damaged, it's gone. It's really not. So I wanted to end with this quote from Carlo Elefante. He used to be president of AIA, but this is a phrase that he coined, and it's the greenest building is the one that's already built. So keep that in mind. Let's be sustainable. Let's have these conversations with our clients. Let's promote reusing the same materials. Let's promote recycling things that can be recycled. This is for future generations. The reason we do stone restoration is that we don't erase the history, but we need to always also make sure that we have a future that we want this to remain for. So keep that in mind, have those conversations, and I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming and attending. We are now open for some Q&A.
Gabriella, thank you for sharing all of this information with us today. I've learned a lot, and I know our audience has too. We do have a few audience questions, but before we dive in, can you introduce your colleague who will be joining us for the live Q&A?
Yes, of course. I'm here with Jose Ruiz. He is the project manager at River City. We've worked together as well. He's got so much experience in this stone industry, whether it's fabrication side, installation, distribution, and a lot of restoration experience as well. And he's a great asset for us, and I'm happy to have him here to help me out with some of the questions as well.
Amazing. So glad that you guys have yourself and your other representative here to help us with these questions. With that, we can go ahead and dive in. Our first question is, what are protective coatings commonly used besides a sealant?
There's a few different options in the market right now. There's a film option that's similar to like a window tinting film that can be applied over to stone. And there's also some topical coatings. If you want to not have sealants on it, then we're talking about topical and not impregnating sealers. So topical coatings, there's a couple of brands out there. There's some newer products as well that can prevent etching and staining even. They even have warranties for it. I personally don't have a lot of experience with them yet because they're a little bit newer on the market. I haven't really, but those could be good options for alternatives, for a sealant as well. But I would always seal it anyways.
As a general rule of thumb, how often should these surfaces be resealed? Or does it depend? I'm sure it depends on the material, but maybe if you could dive in a little bit into that.
It would depend on the material itself. Like a marble, I would definitely be a little more cautious with it and make sure that I'm really on top of resealing. But normally, generally, 2 to 3 years is kind of where you want to go and reseal again. Granite is something that's often overlooked as well. People don't think that they need to seal granite. And honestly, it's normally because it's so busy looking that if something happens, you don't see it. And so you assume that nothing happened. A sentence I hear a lot is, I've had it for over 20 years and I don't have any issues on my granite. And that's great. For a lot of times it's actually true, but sometimes it's just because you don't see the damages. So I would still remind customers that granite still needs to be sealed as well. Any natural stone you want to seal.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight. Our next question is, how dusty is the process of refinishing countertops?
Not at all. It sounds like it would be the dustiest mess ever, but most of it is all wet procedures. So they're always containing the dust. You have techniques to keep the water from dripping over as well from the top of the counter or the surface itself. So it doesn't drip out, doesn't ruin the cabinets, the floors. Depending on what you're refinishing, if it's floors itself, you're always going to protect the cabinets and so on. So it keeps it really well contained. Honestly, a good professional will always leave it spotless at the end. So it's not that big of a deal with dust. It's normally a lot more wet than that.
Amazing. Our next question is, what kind of questions should we be asking our fabricators to determine if they are capable of doing these kinds of repairs?
So I think it's very important to ask a direct question and say, are you guys capable or willing to do restoration? As most fabricators focus all their investment and overhead on manufacturing, line of assembly kind of deal, and their crews are also equipped for doing 1 or 2 kitchens a day. So pulling a crew that could do 2 kitchens a day to do one restoration may not be the most cost effective for them, since the whole setup and layout, it's to fabricate and run material out. Um, Fabricator may be able to lead you in the right direction and recommend a reputable company that does stone restoration, but I don't see very many fabricators that do specialize and dedicate time to restoration.
Perfect. Thank you for that insight. Our next question is, how easy is it to change an installed quartzite slab from polished to honed? Will it significantly change the colors and tones of the stone?
On site, I think it's a little more specific to find somebody that does it. With quartzite individually, I would say it's probably one of the hardest ones to have that done to change the finish. It's very time consuming and just a lot of labor, even equipment and machines and stuff. It's not everybody that can do it. You have to go through a lot of different processes to get it to that point. So oftentimes it's not worth it financially to have that done for either part. So my comment on it is always, if you find somebody that's willing to do it, be ready to pay for it, because it's normally going to increase the price a lot for a quartzite. Different than with a marble, that's a softer stone that can be changed a little more easily. About the tone change itself, I would say expect it to look a couple of shades lighter overall. It's almost as if you have like this hazy film over it. The blacks are not going to be as dark and intense of blacks. They're going to look a little more charcoal and so on with the colors. I would expect it to be a little bit lighter.
That's good to know, especially as they're talking to clients and mitigating expectations that might look different. Our next question is, when a client's sink or counter or cooktop, excuse me, eventually needs to be replaced, trying to keep stone countertop is challenging. Do you have any thoughts on how to best address this?
Don't forget.
Okay, so yes, it can be done. We've done it multiple times, more so swapping sinks. The rule of thumb here is whatever item is being replaced needs to be larger than the one that is being replaced for. Because we can always cut the opening bigger, but you can never make it smaller. So for example, for sinks, most people, they have like the 60/40 type of undermount sink, which they hate. It looks kind of outdated, and they go for a bigger single bowl drop in. So that's for that we cut a bigger hole and then we install the new sink. For cooktops, the limitation on cooktops most of the time is the size of the cabinet itself, because most cooktops will be 30 inches on a 30-inch cabinet. So you're already maxed out underneath. If you want to go with a bigger cooktop, then either the cabinet walls have to be cut out or some minor adjustments need to be done besides the adjustment in the countertop itself.
Perfect. I have Karen asking, what do you think of the film type sheet protectants that are being introduced? They haven't been around for a very long time, and I'm nervous to discuss their longevity.
So for the films, We actually had customers that they utilize that on bars. A couple customers, they have onyx wet bars. They entertain a lot, so they need something to make it last at least a year. The downside of the film is that it will at some point start to peel off of the edges. And every time you are going to redo the film, the surface needs to be as polished and smooth as glass. So every time the film gets replaced, the surface needs to be refinished and repolished so that it adheres better. It will not adhere if you have a rough surface. It would not adhere, or if you have scratches or deep gouges, it will create air bubbles. So the surface, think about it just like that, as if you were tinting glass. So yes, it's effective for very, very high traffic surfaces such as bars, but it's not a permanent solution. It's not something that is going to last 10 years, if that answers the question.
That's good to know, especially as we're talking about upkeep long term. So I appreciate that.
Alicia, I
And
actually have a
yeah,
little something to add on that.
please.
I personally also feel like it takes away a little bit of the character of the stone itself when you put a film over it. Um, you know, all throughout Italy and Greece and everywhere that has marble for centuries and people never cared for it. That stone has never been refinished or sealed or anything. And that's part of the reason we love it, right? So I feel like it sort of takes a little bit of the character away of it, of you actually having use signs on your surfaces. So I don't know, I'm a little more towards having a topical coating on it applied to it other than having a film on it. But that's my personal opinion and preference on it, not necessarily a professional advice, just a comment.
No, that is a real conversation that people are going to have as far as character and long-term sustainability for the surface. So I think it's definitely a conversation worth having and a note that is good to share with clients. Our next question, you did touch on a little bit, Jose, I believe. But what is the best way to find a person who can restore stone material? They're in Southern California personally. I know you mentioned maybe discussing with a fabricator, or are there any other resources that you can touch on for us?
I would say that's definitely the main way I would go is talk to your local people. We've had people that reached out to us after 6 other people went down the line, oh, I don't do it. Talk to this person, the other person. I don't do it. Talk to another one, talk to another one, and so on until it got to us. And that's part of the business, the word of mouth is part of it. But fabricators are probably your best bet at that point. If not, you can try like the Stone Fabricators Alliance, or you can try the Natural Stone Institute. People like that sometimes have partners or know of, or have even like a search that you can use zip codes and stuff and find somebody, professionals in the area. So that might be an option to find somebody like that.
Amazing. And we're just going to go into our final question for today. Do you have any source of an existing document that outlines each material, pros, cons, etc., rather than maybe them searching the internet? Maybe you have something personally that you can share with us.
I can find it and share it, but I would definitely recommend Natural Stone Institute and their website. There's hundreds of materials there, things to help you support and educate your customers as well, and comparative like charts and all of that, even getting very technical about it with densities and stone absorption rates, Mohs scales, like things like that. You can get all that information from the Natural Stone Institute as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Gabrielle and Jose. This has been great. We appreciate you joining and sharing your expertise with us all. Before we close out here today, did you have any last remarks for our audience?
No, just thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for paying attention to this topic. That's something we don't talk about too much. We don't see it too much. Keep being sustainable, keep making good choices. And just thank you, everybody. This was great.
Amazing. Thank you both. And a huge thank you to our audience for joining. Until next time, have a great day, everyone.